1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Welcome back to the TMCJ podcast. We are now on episode 19.
19!
An episode after our last one, which was our Thanksgiving special, which was released a week after Thanksgiving.
Yes, indeed. Sorry, I'm already. Sorry, I'm all over the place. I'm focusing. Someone's talking to me about the channel, and so I'm instinctively reacting.
Yeah,
I should not do that.
So a point of clarification that Blue made before this was he actually hasn't slept yet, and he is hopped up on coffee.
I am. That's why I'm speaking very quick, or at least it's in my head. It sounds very quickly.
You are speaking very quickly.
Okay, cool. I'll shut up.
It's fine. In fact, shutting up is probably the worst thing you could do on a podcast.
I mean, well, maybe they want the sound of silence.
They could just have an ASMR of me drinking tea.
And coffee.
Oh, man. Well, anyway, so to the topics segment, we only had a couple things. One mystery topic, which Blue won't tell me about, or hasn't told me about yet.
That was not really a mystery. I was just going to,
reveal it on the podcast?
Yeah.
Why don't we start with that?
Okay, well, it's something that's been... I've watched a couple of videos on this. The most recent one was earlier today. And that is about Pokemon trading cards.
Okay, that's something I haven't heard about in years. I did used to, play the Pokemon trading card game when I was, 5. No, I was old. I had to be a bit older than that. Maybe 9 or 10.
Yeah, I was never a big Pokemon card fan. I was more of a Digimon fan in general, but sorry, I've got to stop looking at this guy's chat. Right, he's being really nice. What a lovely guy. So I watched people doing these things where they buy a box of the original Pokemon cards, okay? So these original super condition, whatever bollocks. And they're opening them on stream, and they're, showing the price of them, right?
Yeah.
So, for one single... Not a box. For a single, booster pack, the little plastic thing with about... 7 or 8 cards in it.
Yeah.
$1,500.
I could see that. It's an unopened original pack. Somebody would have had to have bought that and then sit on it for 2 decades.
That's the average. But so I was watching some of the cards come out. The average card went for about $90, and we're talking about I was going to say Mr. Mime, but Mr. Mime's more valuable than that. Yeah. A fucking mushroom boy. I don't know. I can't even think of what a shit Pokemon is in Gen 1 at this point.
Well, the guy you're thinking of is Paris.
Yes, oh god, yeah. Okay, Paris was less than $90.
Or a Zubat.
I actually didn't see any Zubats. It might have not been that particular...
I was just trying to think of shitty Pokemon.
But, the best one, he got a shiny Snorlax, right? And that's, the best one he could have got from the boxes. Shiny Snorlax, on its own, single card, just under 16 grand.
I should look back at my old Pokemon collection.
You should.
I still have all the cards. They're in a chest of drawers at my parents' place. They're all in binders, in cases and stuff, so they should be in decent condition.
Bear in mind, I'm talking about 16 grand for a mint condition, not in any way damaged.
Yeah, all of mine would have
printed.
90% of mine would have been in mint condition because the ones I played with would have been a little rougher because I played with them.
Yeah.
But I generally treated them all with very gently. It always made me cringe when I'd see people playing the game and then they'd shuffle them like a deck of cards, but they'd bend them. It's just oh god.
But yeah, and the evolutions. EVs were also quite. I think a regular EV, not shiny, was about $350.
What? I've got like 30 of those at home.
A Pikachu, again not shiny, was about $550.
Yeah,
$550.
All right, it's time for me to take a closer look at those cards.
Yeah. I mean, these are Generation 1 in mint condition we're talking about.
Yeah,
Always, but,
that's when I played.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Just how vast, expensive little pieces of cardboard can be.
Well, I think I've found an idea for a future video. I'm going to dig out those old Pokemon card binders, and you and I are going to go over them on a video.
Oh my god!
Because
shit, I'll be here with the stats. How much is everything worth? But then, would you? I feel like even if you found out that something was super expensive, it would give me more reason not to sell it.
I mean, yeah, it's
so
not like
now I'm holding an artifact.
that is probably how I'd feel about it too. Like, it's not like it's nice to know it's there, because if I ever were hard up for money, I could maybe sell them. But you're right. In thinking about it realistic, it's nice to know how much they're actually worth and that they've accrued value. But in real terms, I probably wouldn't sell them because they have more value to me in terms of like a nostalgia value, or like somebody who hangs a painting in their house, right? It's just like, oh look, I have this cool thing that's actually worth cash and it's pretty.
Yeah, and how much is nostalgia worth is the real question.
Quite a bit. I mean, So I recently, I was really into Transformers when I was a kid. It was my favorite show growing up, like my favorite animated show when I was like 4 or 5 years old, and it continued to be for many years after that. And then the subsequent series that they made beyond that, the original run, they, like, the nostalgia for that, they released, the original company that made the Transformers toys released these Masterpiece Edition versions, and they're ridiculously expensive, but they're also significantly higher quality, and they're much more accurate to what they looked like on the shows, because there was some disconnect a lot of the time. So I bought like the Masterpiece version of the original Transformers Generation 1 Megatron, which he was the one where the original toy was like nothing like he was in the show. Which I never got the original toy because it got banned in the US because he transformed into a gun.
Yeah, it got banned everywhere, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah. The problem here is that specifically, even model guns have to have like that orange safety tip on them. So they're not confused with real ones.
It wasn't like, the particular attachment on that weapon is not legal in Boston. You can't have Megatron around here.
Yeah, Megatron, you've got to get the right colored sights. You can't have a stock. Like, what are you doing, man?
Exactly, yeah. Like, if it was an M4A1S or something, like, that's fine, but,
But yeah, I got the Masterpiece Edition of that, and that was like $350 or something like that. And so, yes, nostalgia people will pay a lot for nostalgia. I actually recently bought like an old NES console secondhand, which it's surprising how cheap you can get them for. Like we sold our NES console so we could upgrade when I was younger. Like I sold my NES so I could buy a N64.
Yeah.
Which is something that I deeply regretted later because I would have really liked to still have that and still be playing those old games because I had a decent collection on that system. So in a fit of nostalgia, I bought an original NES and then some games for it just to play around on it. But it wasn't that expensive, to be honest. I think I paid $100 for the console and maybe 50 total for all of the games I got. I didn't get any of the rare games.
They're not quite old enough just yet. I know that seems a bit mad, but if it's within your generation, within your lifespan, basically, then it's probably not quite old enough yet.
If you think about it, though, the NES came out in 1985. The Pokemon cards we were just talking about came out in the mid-90s.
Yes, but I think people take a lot less care of little pieces of cardboard as opposed to giant hunks of plastic and tech.
That is a very good point.
Also, I don't know if it's just been like in the last few years or if I've just been missing the plot, but there's been a lot of restorations for that kind of stuff these days.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And I think it probably also changed things a bit when Nintendo released like the NES Mini, and the like they released all the old NES games or a bunch of the old ones for free on the Switch. So I think that probably hurt the market, the nostalgia market a little bit. So you've now got the people who just want to play those old games again.
Yeah.
And the only way they could have done that before was to, well, buy the old console. But now that these older games are being released on more modern things, or even the NES Mini, which looks like the NES but tiny, and you still have the same boxy controller that dug into your palms.
Yeah. I used one of them. I'm trying to remember what the console was. I don't know if it's SNES or NES.
I think it was on an earlier podcast we talked about old consoles, and when I showed you pictures, you identified it as the SNES.
It was the Nintendo 64, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, maybe it was the Nintendo 64. Okay, never mind. But I showed you a picture of the NES, the NES, and you confirmed that you'd never seen it.
Right.
At the time, at least.
Maybe, I don't know.
It's no good.
I played around with that for a little bit. My brother bought one a long time ago, and we got like Mario Kart and stuff on it, and that was pretty fun. But it's something I'd play once for the, oh hey, it's a really cool old console and it looks half decent. But it's not something I would like. It's not like a PC that I'd go on every day.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
There's a couple old games. I'd pick it up to maybe do a playthrough of some of my old favorites. Like, I mean, Ocarina of Time is the classic one that everyone seems to bang on about, but I did really enjoy that game, and more than that one actually. What?
But I liked it, but generally I'm not a huge Zelda fan. I think the games drag on a little bit too much for me.
Ocarina of Time, I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun playing it as a kid, but it doesn't occupy the same sort of mythical status that it does, I feel like, for a lot of people.
No, I think Zelda's definitely dropped off over time.
Also, I liked Majora's Mask better.
It's too much thinking for this day and age. People want to shoot guns.
Ironically, though, that's something that annoyed me about the new Zelda that came out on the Switch. Like,
is that Wind Waker?
No, Wild something? No, Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
that was it.
Wind Waker was the sailing one, I think.
Oh yeah, I think I quite enjoyed that one. I think I had it on DS.
I was one of the people that was too bothered by the massive shift in the graphics.
Yeah, that was a pretty big shift.
But
I quite like those.
I if I wasn't expecting a Zelda game, I would have liked it. That was my problem.
It didn't feel like a Zelda game.
I'd come off of Majora's Mask, which was like it was a very serious and kind of darker version of Zelda from Ocarina of Time, and then I went to that game next, and I was like, oh, this isn't what I was expecting. And I think if I had gone in there just thinking, hey, this is a cool like sail around adventure game, I would have liked it. But it's because of like the difference between expectation and reality. It was a bit jarring.
Mind you, you go into Black Flag thinking it's going to be an Assassin's Creed game, and then you're happily pleased that it is not.
That's true. Oh, I could have like that game became so shitty every time you had to play Assassin's Creed. But the rest of the game was just, hey, let's have a happy, fun time pirate adventure on the open seas.
Sea shanties.
Sea shanties, yes. In fact, finding a new sea shanty became the prime motivation for leaving your ship, because if you didn't, they would just sing the same damn one every single time.
I turned mine off pretty fucking quickly.
Oh, I loved them.
I think my boyfriend of the time, though, just fucking loved them and leave them on the whole time. He'd start, like, just randomly bursting into song in the middle of the fucking week, and it was so annoying. But like Pokemon cards, but instead something that I actually played, Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
I played that too. Actually,
I did play a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh.
that was the game that I played. My friends from high school, we'd after school, like a few times a week, they'd come over to my place and we'd play a few rounds of that.
Did you ever get the when they came out, the arm mounted?
No.
Did you not? Oh, my brother got
I did
one
not.
of them. It was so clunky and awkward, but you felt so cool.
I think one of my friends may have at some point, but when we played, no. And we never, like, we'd occasionally have the show on in the background, or we'd have the anime Yu Yu Hakusho on, or Cromartie High School, which is another really good one.
Yeah.
We'd have something like that on in the background and just be playing the games. But we... Oh my god.
I used to... I when it was, like, originally becoming a thing, I really enjoyed it then. When they added too many cards, and some really quite confusing cards, I kind of lost interest.
That was always the weird thing. There was a lot of the wordier the cards got, the more room for misinterpretation there was, which ends with a lot of, like, fighting when you've, like, made a deck and you think you know how something works, and it turns out that some judge somewhere made a call and it works completely different than that. It did get a little obtuse.
Well, they banned Black Hole. I mean, Black Hole's the ultimate field leveler, because if the enemy is playing super complex cards, you could just be like, ha, fuck you, they're all dead.
Yeah, what was it? There was also another one got banned. Was it Raigeki?
Change of Heart, I think, got banned.
Change of Heart did get banned, but Raigeki was the one that destroyed the entire enemy line and left yours alone.
Oh, I don't remember that one. I vaguely remember the name, but I can't remember what it looked like.
It was banned from in the original set. I don't think they ever unbanned it. Like, it was only for, like, free play.
Did they ban Pitfall?
I don't know. I don't think so. Again, this is me going back and trying to remember a ban list from when I was 16.
I mean, I don't really remember the names. I just remember the pictures.
That's like me with people.
Yeah. But no, like, I really love that. I don't know how much they're possibly worth now.
I imagine it's similar, but probably not to the same extent as Pokemon.
It definitely won't be anywhere near Pokemon, I don't think.
I don't think they ever were. A lot of the Wizards of the Coast stuff, Magic cards were another one, but those tend not to be, like, unless you're talking about the seriously old ones that have been out of print forever, for, like, collectors, you're really not going to see Magic cards get up in price because they remake them and reprint them like every 3 or 4 sets.
Unless they're considered racist.
Oh yeah, then they never reprint them again.
Yeah, and they become really valuable.
That made me laugh so hard. They're like, they banned a card because it gave attack power bonuses to white creatures, which if you've never played Magic the Gathering, the card game, there are 5 basic, like, creature types, colors. There's red creatures, which are generally, like, offensive, like fire and mountain and stuff like that. And then there's blue, which is about, like, control, and they generally have, like, ocean motifs. Then you've got green, which is, about growth and building up power and, getting a lot of energy to summon more shit, and they're generally forest-looking. There's white, which is, like, divine creatures, like angels and knights and things like that. And there's black, which is generally, like, monsters like vampires and zombies, and it's all about, like, reanimating dead things and poisoning and stuff. So it's not like, but they banned it because the card said give all white creatures +1/1, and I'm like, what? It's like you're gonna have to ban, like, basically that entire color from the game if you go down that route. Sorry, mini rant. But
That's
the
right.
the thing Blue is referring to is a few months back, and I think we talked. Did we talk about it on the podcast? I don't know if we did.
I'm not sure. I think it might have been a bit too spicy for us at the time.
They they banned a few cards because they thought they had racist undertones, um, and it out of the cards they banned, there's only one of them that I could see being a little bit too spicy, but the other ones are just completely open to interpretation. Anyway, they banned them, and the price of those cards on like the secondhand market went through the roof overnight. Like people were buying them up left and right. So as usual, banning something because you don't want it to be seen or used has the opposite effect.
I've got I'm sorry.
It's
While
fine.
you're talking, I looked at something and I'm super mad, and I don't know if we're going to be able to discuss it or not. But yeah,
we'll talk about it in the interim between segment 1 and 2.
Indeedles. Sorry. Yes. Did you have any topics for this week?
Well, I think that one other thing we wanted to talk about, because we seem to be just talking about nostalgia at
Oh
this
yes,
point.
yeah, I remember.
Recently, Blue pointed out that Sonic 3D Blast, which was a game that I played on the PC. We had a Windows 95 PC. This was when I was like 6 or 7 years old, and this was one of the only games we had for it. And it was this 3D like isometric Sonic game, and you'd run around, beat robots, save birds, and then fight boss battles. It was very simple, arcadey kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we've both been playing through it a bit this week, and God, that game had horrible controls.
It was back in the day, it was very normal controls as we've discussed, but to us who are now used to WASD for movement and spacebar for jump, it's very irksome to use arrow keys for movement and S and D for jump and roll.
Yeah, well, and it's
Or
A or
ASU.
D. Yeah, but
Yeah.
to be fair, after a little bit, I sort of got used to it, got into the rhythm. Like the old, it's my brain still has the memory of playing it back there somewhere. So, but it just it did take a little bit of getting used to. That's something that you don't think about so much now. Control systems are fairly standardized throughout most games now. Most games of the same type, at least.
Indeed. Yeah, I was gonna say I was trying to remember if we discussed things already. Did we discuss the Army Men thing?
No.
Okay, yeah, that's another really, really, really old game that I played as a child, and so did another person from the Hive, which is again really weird because it's interesting to see what games came out in America and England, and at vaguely separate age groups would play.
Yeah.
Like it seems kind of 1 in a million-ish, but I guess it's not because it keeps happening.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there are certain
Yeah.
certain games that are either timeless, but I also think there was a lot more. Like I played a ton of games on the NES, but by the time I was old enough and playing games on the NES, it had already been out for a little over 5 years, and like the Super Nintendo was out already. The only reason I was playing games on the NES was because I got it as a hand-me-down from one of my cousins out west. Yeah, and I inherited those games, and that's why that was my only console for like maybe 5 or so years or more, and then I got an N64. That was the first new console I ever got.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe there's an element of that to it. Maybe back in the day, when you're younger, like games can last you a little bit longer because you're more easily entertained.
Also, I spent a lot less time on the computer when I was a child. We got initially we got like 1 hour of game time a week. So everything took a lot longer to do. I don't know if we ever completed Sonic. I can't remember. And we had that for years. Because 1 hour of game time is not enough time to get good at a game. It's
Yeah,
enough to
really.
enjoy a game, which is perfect, but you're probably not going to make much progress.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I didn't really have limits put on how much time I could play, but it was more like, this is your free time, do with it as you will, kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh
And
god.
so it was whether or not I was, playing outside or playing on the console. I kind of did whichever. I'm trying to think. I wasn't like a kid who sat like glued to the TV for hours and hours. Um, I'd kind of rotate between doing things. I didn't have the attention span to sit doing one thing for long periods of time,
Yeah.
or at least that's how I remember it. But who knows?
I probably would have, but then I don't know. No, I don't know. The alternative was be bored, so
Yeah.
I did a hell of a lot of stuff to try and entertain myself, but at the end of the day, there's not many things that are more entertaining than a specifically made game
Yeah.
meant to entertain people. Like your imagination can only go so far.
I don't know. I'm remembering like this has just become two men
It's a
try to
nostalgia
remember their
fest.
childhood.
Yeah. It was so long ago.
I'm so old.
Yeah.
Oh. All right. Well, we're kind of floundering here.
Yeah, sorry.
Shall we talk about something else just to kind of round us off?
Yeah,
here?
have you got something?
Hmm.
Have you got something?
Not really. No.
Okay. I have been playing. Wait, did we talk about Naruto last week?
I don't know.
God,
This
we are
is
the
just
worst
this.
today.
We started off strong today, and this has just all gone terribly, terribly wrong.
I think I got Naruto. Yeah, because last week it was Spyro, I'm pretty sure.
Mm.
I finished it for all those concerned out there. Yes, I've now completed all 3 games 100% on Spyro. I moved on to Naruto Shippuden Ultimate Ninja Storm 3.
Which sounds a lot more exciting than it is. It's 90% cutscenes.
It is. It's basically an anime. But I really like the gameplay. But I understand that a lot of other people probably wouldn't.
Watching you play it made me just want to watch Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah. It's pretty, I would say. And they've put a lot of work into it, but there isn't a vast amount of things you can do. It's more like an experience that you enjoy once, and you're like, cool, I've done that now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, if I were to play it again, I would totally skip all the cutscenes, and the whole game would probably last me half an hour.
Well, that's you say it's more like watching an anime, and honestly, that's my impression from watching you play it. Is it seems to be a game that's made for people who would like to watch an anime and then occasionally press buttons.
Yeah, just to make sure you're awake. Yeah, you were kind of you're watching it, and every so often you'd pause because an important thing was being said. But at some point, I think you realised that an important thing is being said every 5 minutes. So you just gave up eventually, trying to talk to me. And I wasn't telling you to be quiet. It just felt right to be quiet. I understand that.
Yeah, there was there's a change in the tone, a plot point. Two physically identical characters were talking at each other, and honestly, I couldn't tell which one was talking.
And I think it's like pretty damn close to the actual canon plot of the anime, based on my vague recollection. But there's a lot of fights that you go into, like with the whole there's the 5 Kages versus the 5 leaders of all the ninjas.
Yeah, okay.
Versus the one son of God, basically. And like, oh my god, this is going to be an insane fight. And it is an insane fight. and he's in this like giant flaming blue colossus while you're attacking him with these 5 different awesome people, and they finally beat him, and he goes, "Cool, right? I'm gonna retreat now. See you for another fight later." And I'm like, "What? How can you escalate from the 5 strongest people on like the planet? Well, not the 5 strongest, but the 5 world leaders." Like, I assume that it's purely because it has to be Naruto that beats all the evil people at some point.
Oh yeah, so. This was the first of all. I want to say, because I guarantee you, if you didn't clarify what the Kages, if you didn't clarify who the hell they were, people wouldn't have known what you're talking about. That, like, I've seen the original anime, and even still, when you were talking about like plot points and who people were, I was just like, what language is he speaking? I mean, in theory, Japanese, but
yeah.
I think I came to this conclusion after watching a few of those cutscenes with you while you were playing it yesterday, and that was that Naruto, I think, is an anime that appeals to people who see themselves as losers, because that's what Naruto is. He's a complete loser who just somehow ends up, being friends with all the cool people and gets all these superpowers.
It's an underdog story. Except by the end of the first season, it's not really an underdog anymore because he's the same power or higher as everyone else.
Exactly. That's kind of my point. Yes, at the beginning, that was what got me watching in the first place, and I enjoyed it because you're right. It was an underdog story. He was kind of an outcast. He was hated by people. It wasn't really clear why, and he was struggling to find his place in the world. It's like, okay, that's a good plot. But then he's like, oh, by the way, I'm also secretly a god and have all these other powers and stuff, and I can kick anyone's ass no matter what because the plot needs it to happen. And I'm like, okay, you've kind of lost me now.
He's not really a god. He's
not a god.
He's just
somebody
like
shoved a god
cursed by
inside
a
him.
really fucking strong demon, which kind of helps him more than anything.
Yeah, it's a. Yeah. I don't know.
There's a lot of cool characters.
There are, and that was what I used to say about that anime, was because I watched it the whole way through, and after a while I was watching it less for the plot and more for, alright, let's see what other cool person they'll bring out. Like, the show is named after the main character, Naruto, and every time he was on screen I was like, get this boring asshole away from me. Show me one of the other cool people. Because they'd all have these interesting powers and techniques and shit, and they'd do, like, cool stuff, and he would just do the exact same 3 moves every...
Primarily Rasengan, Shadow Clone Jutsu. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Alright. Well, there's nothing else you have to say about that game. I think we've officially hit a new low. We're talking about Naruto on the podcast.
Doesn't it make you think of college?
No, I didn't watch it in college. I watched it in high school. But yeah. Alright. We'll end this segment there. Thank you everyone for listening. This is the end of segment 1. We are now moving on after a brief transition to segment 2. And welcome back to the TMCJ podcast. We are on segment 2, our media segment, and during the countdown, Blue was trying to make me laugh.
No, keep it. Okay, cool.
He also doesn't want me to repeat what he said to try and make me laugh.
I was not trying to make you laugh. I was trying to, I don't know, throw you off. Add some spice to that.
And yet,
scene.
I held on to my professionalism.
You did, like a true gentleman.
That's
Faced
right.
by giant, no, I'm not gonna get there. Go on, right, you start.
Alright, so we actually did have movie night this week. In fact, we had movie night last night.
Just about. We just remembered it in the nick of time.
Right. Yeah, so this week it was my pick, and I selected The Boondock Saints, which is, as I was joking, probably the most Boston movie that ever was made.
After about an hour of indecision, he came
Yeah,
up with this.
well, it was a little bit more than that. And in the end, I ended up rolling a die to choose between two movies.
Yep.
It was either going to be Boondock Saints or American Gangster, which is also another very good movie, which is 2.5 hours long. But the Boondock Saints is kind of a classic in Massachusetts, mainly because it was a movie made about Boston.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, not about Boston specifically.
not Boston specifically, but just all the high shots of the city skyline. They kept walking around, like going to different landmarks, and
Yeah, it was about Boston in the same way that Die Hard's about Christmas.
that's a good metaphor. But at least it's one of those kind of regional movies where I think everyone in this state has heard of it, and most people have seen it. And the closer you get to Boston proper, I think the more people who would just say it was in their top movies.
Well, how old is it? Because, I mean, it wasn't...
99.
99.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
21 years old now.
Oof. Maybe people are going to start to forget it pretty soon then.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, it's still kind of a cult classic here, but the general, like, also just one last thing on this point before I start going into what the movie's actually about. We were looking up I was looking up what movies came out in 1999 because I felt like there was a lot of good movies that came out that year. And then I looked, and there were quite a few, but then I saw, for some reason, the Metacritic score, which is based on, all the, like an amalgam of all the critic ratings for a movie, and then the user review, or like the user on IMDb review of the movie, were very disparate. Like, people had given the movie like 7.8 stars out of 10, but the critics had given it like 44%. And I was like, okay, this is weird. So I clicked on it, and two critics gave it kind of like a middling review, like between 40 and 60%. One critic had given it 25%, and then one had given it 75%, and it was the Boston Globe, which it's a big newspaper around here. And I'm like, of course, the one that gives it the highest rating is the one from Boston. Anyway, but so the movie, if you don't know the plot, follows along these two brothers who are, I don't know, it's never really quite established if they're like first generation Irish immigrants or if they're actually like they were born in Ireland and came over here. But two Irish brothers living in South Boston who, through a contrived series of events, end up getting into a bar fight with some Russian mob people, who then come to take revenge on them, and they end up, having to kill the guys in self-defense in a very ridiculous and over-the-top fashion. At which point they sort of decide it's their calling to take out all the evil and corrupt gang people throughout the city. And the movie just follows along with them doing that in more and more ridiculous and over-the-top fashion.
Well, one trend that ran throughout the film is that what they would do is, the producer of the film, is they'd show you the end result of a battle, and then they'd go back and show you how it happened.
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of getting into there, is the other plot line is they're following an FBI inspector, played by William Dafoe, I think his name is. He's the guy that played the Green Goblin in the original Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, Willem.
Willem? Is it Willem?
I think it is. That's the way I always had it pronounced.
Yeah, is it Willem or William?
You keep talking.
Either way, it's last name's Dafoe. That guy.
Yeah, Willem. Willem.
Oh, Willem. Okay. Anyway, so he's the guy. He's an FBI investigator, and throughout the movie, like Blue was saying, what you'll see is that you'll see sort of the beginning to what's about to happen to the two brothers, and then it'll cut to the end result, and then this FBI investigator is like piecing together what's happened, and then they'll show you the actual, like, as he's talking about what happened, then they'll show you what actually the brothers actually did. And it's a really, I really like it because I find it really entertaining because you're right, you see the aftermath and then it's like, how the hell did that happen? And then as it's revealed, you're kind of like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. I don't know, I like my action films, but when they're kind of gangstery, mob kind of films, I kind of like them more realistic.
More grounded. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like, I don't know, it could have very easily gone one of two ways. It could have very easily gone into a comedy, or it could very easily have gone into an actual mob film.
Yeah.
And
it does kind of gyrate between the two.
Yeah, and it kind of offset me a bit. I'm sure that works for some people, but it was just kind of jarring because there was a serious scene followed up by a joke, and I'm like, I'm confused now. And
there's also, sorry, no, finish your thought.
I was just gonna say, and the Willem Dafoe character really annoyed me in general.
Oh my god, yeah, I really liked, but in the beginning though, like throughout most of the movie, he was good. But I agree with you that at the end he kind of gets, he's converted to their side a little bit too easily.
And
spoiler alert.
There's some things that he just knows, but it doesn't explain how he knows. And when they have just raided the guy's house and the crazy person is waiting on the street for them, right?
Yeah.
In the flashback, like when it's overlaid, the detective in real time.
Yeah.
The detective in real time is firing a gun up in the air.
Yeah, that's where it starts to get ridiculous. First of all, doing that in a residential neighborhood, you're going to kill somebody because those bullets will eventually come back down.
Yeah. So I'm like, did that actually happen or not?
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that always has bothered me about that scene too. But yeah,
I interrupted you earlier from what you were going to say there.
Oh, I was just going to say there's quite a few. I was going to change over to there's quite a few memorable quotes from the movie. I find that you'll be able to, anyone who's seen the movie will probably know what you're talking about. One of them is that scene right before he fires the gun in the air, and he walks out front and he just throws his hands in the air and is like, "There was a firefight." There's that one. One of my favorite funny ones is like, you remember when they're like drinking really heavily and the gun goes off in the apartment and kills the pet?
Oh yeah, I was like, did that just happen? I didn't even see the cat like being there, so I wasn't sure what happened until they were like, oh my god.
Yeah, and then at the end, right before it fades to black, the one brother is just like, I can't believe that just fucking happened. Which I always find hilarious because it's exactly what the audience is thinking at that moment.
Yeah, I mean, everyone expects the people to die and they're fine with it, but when a pet dies, it's like,
yeah, there's a lot of, yeah.
I know it's really. There was a rude thing that was said at one point by the detective when he's taking a phone call.
Yeah.
I don't know why it did make me crack up a little bit, but
cuddle.
But it was so awkward. Like that scene was so awkward, and that line at the end just relinquished that awkwardness for me, at least.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of the point.
Of it, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, when it got to the end, the whole detective changing side shit and dressing up as a fucking transvestite and oh god.
Yeah, there's some weird choices near the end. I personally, having seen the movie quite a few times, I really, really like the first like half to three quarters of the movie, but the end really does kind of start to lose me.
And right at the end, the way they actually do end it, I think is really bad, because they basically are common criminals.
Yeah, at that point, that's actually a good point to transition this conversation, because I think we've basically gone over plot points, things we liked and disliked throughout the movie itself, but the theme of the movie in general is kind of vigilantes, right? Being the only ones who can take down these big, corrupt, like evil people, essentially.
Yeah.
But the way it's kind of portrayed haphazardly at the beginning, it kind of seems a little bit more balanced. You see these people and they're kind of just, they're deciding things arbitrarily, but then you get to the ending, the part you're talking about, and it's like a public execution where they're pointing guns out at the audience and like telling them like they've become morally self-righteous by the end, which I don't know. It's not. I can see where they were going with it, but it doesn't really feel.
You know, it reminded me of the Dark Knight trilogy Part 3, where Bane has taken over the city and the courthouses are just like, I think they should die. Let's throw them out into the water and just let them die. That's exactly the feeling I got of them marching into a courthouse and just no, whatever you're saying or thinking or doing, no, it ends now. We're telling you that he's going to die.
It's, and I said this last night, but I think that it potentially it's a message from its era, right? Because the end of the 90s, you saw a lot of movies like that. Both The Matrix and Fight Club also had similar themes, where not similar themes in the vein that they're talking about, like vigilantes and that kind of like mob justice sort of thing, but similar themes in that they kind of reflected a bland hopelessness, right? Like people like in the mid to late 90s, there was kind of this, I don't know, I guess this feeling that this like dry, bland corporate everything was, sucking the soul out of people, and all these evil people were just allowed to do whatever the hell they wanted because they had money and influence and stuff. And I feel like movies like this, in the same vein as movies like Fight Club, were just creative ways that were that kind of gave release to that kind of a feeling. I don't agree with it at all. No. Like I think if a movie like that came out today, it probably wouldn't hold up nearly as well.
Well, it's an interesting concept. It is one that's been played a couple of times now. I think, as we said, we discussed about the similarities with that and Death Note.
Oh yeah,
which is a great anime.
Yeah, Death Note, by the way, people who haven't seen it, an anime where a high school student, college prep student, he wasn't in high school, manages to find this notebook from the afterlife, and basically, if he writes someone's name in it, they die. And he can write a cause of death and like time of death, and they'll die in the way that he writes it in the book, and he uses it to try and take out criminals and people just en masse. And that anime is played a lot better. I think this is what you were talking about last night. It becomes like a battle of wits between this guy who's using vigilante justice to try and correct the world around him, and a detective who's trying to catch him and prevent him from killing anymore.
Yeah.
Whereas in this movie,
they give up.
yeah. In this movie, the detective just joins up with them, and they decide, you know what, vigilante justice all the way.
And equally disappointing ending in both of them.
Yeah,
Even though they
I will.
have like opposite endings, because theoretically in Boondock Saints they get away with it. If it's going to be a quick ending, I think they shouldn't get away with it. If it's going to be a long ending, I would love if they did get away with it because they've earned it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if there was more of a build up to it.
Yeah, like Catch Me If You Can, for example.
Oh yeah, I really liked that movie.
It's a brilliant movie. It's quite a short and sharp end, and he does get caught, and he goes to prison. But then they're like, "You're a really intelligent, smart guy. We'll let you out of prison if you work for us." And I think that is a brilliant ending.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's a true story, so I mean, it's even more brilliant. But no, I enjoyed the Boondock Saints, but it's not something that I could really sink my teeth into.
Yeah, and I think looking at it now, like, because it's been a few years since I watched it. I think the last time I watched it the whole way through was in college. And having watched it the whole way through again, there is a very jarring tone shift near the end. And I think this is what we were talking about earlier, where you said it's moving back and forth between, like, comedy action and, like, serious mob drama action. And there's a shift where, because everything up until that point, even when they're taking out like a room full of mobsters, or those guys get shot in the diner by Rocco, excuse me, it's all played kind of silly, right? They're taking out all these horribly corrupt people and evading the police almost by sheer luck and coincidence. And there's funny bits to it because they're kind of incompetent in the ways that they do it a lot of the time, like the whole scene with the rope. But then at the end, when they're in the courthouse and when they're in the basement of the mob boss's house,
Yeah.
like, it's suddenly very serious, and it's like they're no longer kind of goofy and fooling around and somehow lucking out of, being caught by the police and everything like that. Now it's like suddenly very, very serious and gritty, like the whole
they switch between
Dark Knight
badass and like childish innocence, which just is odd.
Yeah. I think it was much better balanced in the beginning of the movie, but they kind of go over the top near the end.
Yeah, I was kind of trying to work out right at the beginning why they were allowed to just walk around in the middle of the church sermon, because they hadn't done anything up till that point.
I think it's kind of implied throughout the movie that family connections, right?
Right.
Like, maybe because if that was, it's kind of implied that guy at the end was their dad, right?
No, well, I don't know. I did
thought
think
it was.
that, but then I was like, but no, they can't. It can't have been their dad.
Why not?
I don't know. I feel like
I think that's what it was implying, because the whole reason he doesn't kill him is he hears them doing the family prayer, and then he completes it, and then like they're in their mid-20s, and they say that this guy has been locked up for 25 years, so they wouldn't really know what he looks like.
Oh, did they say that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they already fucking shot at him once.
Well, right, but exactly, they didn't know who he was, and he didn't know who they were, because they hadn't seen each other in more than 2 decades.
It could have helped if they, said something.
I think they kept it ambiguous on purpose. They didn't, like, spell it out. It was something you're supposed to piece together and go, oh.
Yeah, not... There are some things that works with, but I don't think that was... I don't know. It just felt... I don't know. Oh, I don't know. I say it too much. Yeah, any closing thoughts you have on the Boondocks?
Closing thoughts. Like I said, I really liked the first 3/4 of the movie. I find it thoroughly entertaining. But the moral of it is just something that I'm not really ever on board with. As much fun as it is to watch, Batman punch people or
Yeah.
a mob boss to get shot in the face. I it's not I think a moral philosophy I could ever
Get behind.
be on board with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
All right. Well, the only other thing I've been doing this week, I've been rewatching two shows. Just like I've kind of had them on in the background while I've been working, just to have some noise to fill the space while I'm doing fucking paperwork. One is Battlestar Galactica, the series from the early 2000s, and then the other one is a show that I think was on AMC that then got bought by Netflix, which was Hell on Wheels. Both of them excellent shows. Battlestar Galactica, it's a sci-fi show that's in a very different vein from sci-fi shows like Star Trek or Stargate, where they're kind of going places and these new characters and things are what really drives the plot. Whereas Battlestar Galactica, it's more like they're kind of it's a group of survivors stranded on like a small number of ships, like running from an enemy that's chasing them. And so the story becomes much more about inter-character drama, how each person is dealing with the situation, how they resolve different crises that are resulting from the situation that they're in, try to get by with the limited resources they have and still stay alive. I really, really like it because the character writing in it is just excellent. But it's not a sci-fi genre that appeals to anyone. Have you ever seen it or seen any of it?
That's like Galactica. No, not really. I think it was kind of before my time, but
I personally never watched it until years after it had already finished.
alright.
It was, I think it ran from 2005 to 2010 maybe, or 2009. And I never watched it until, I want to say 2012 or 2013 for the first time. So it had already finished by the time I watched it. But, yeah, just really good series. I like that kind of character drama stuff, those stories of just... I also like the, stranded at an island kind of plot lines, where it's the same group of people trapped in a situation, and the plot is just how do they deal with this situation and try to get out of it.
Well, that's not the only thing that's finishing or finished. I suppose that's finished. It was a bad transition. Tomorrow, they are releasing the final season of Attack on Titan.
I have not watched that show since the first season.
Me neither. Actually, I watched the first 2 seasons of it, I think.
I read the manga for a while. But
I've never understood why people were so infatuated by it.
I see it as something that I could get into, but it just never hooked me. I think if I took the time and actually sat down and watched it, I would watch it the whole way through, because the concept's interesting. People trapped, these giant monsters roaming the world that are vastly more powerful than them, and they have to use all these weird pieces of technology to try and just survive.
I may have seen too many animes that are like that already. There's a zombie
that may be
one
why
that
I
feels
stopped
super
watching
similar to it. I can't remember what it's called though.
High School of the Dead.
Probably not.
Yeah, no, it's not that one.
It's somewhere like there's a young girl with blade sandals or something.
Blade sandals.
Yeah, I can't.
I do not remember. I don't think I've ever seen that.
It's like a zombie thing. But anyway. People were going crazy for the time. They were buying special coats and backpacks with the logos on, and I swear half people didn't know what they were buying. But it was
It was a fad. Like,
It was. It was a really bad anime for it to happen though. Like I can imagine a lot of other animes that happening with, but they don't. And so I was so
no.
confused why it happened with that one.
I mean, I could say the same thing about Naruto.
Yeah, but Naruto's a kind of a timeless classic, really. I mean, it's been around for so long, and it's
What, so people just, they like it through Stockholm Syndrome? They've moved on from that now. They've moved on to Naruto's kid, Boruto, which I thought was a joke, but it's actually his name.
yeah. I've not heard anything. I haven't seen any of the movies or past the Akatsuki arc, really. Well, I've seen a bit past that because I've been playing the game, but
Yeah, now you've watched. You've watched the rest of
I
it.
believe there's a lot more to it, though.
Mm.
Same with One Piece. I kind of gave up eventually. I've watched so many hundreds of episodes of One Piece, and eventually I was just like, nope. It was stuck on a single arc for like 70 plus episodes.
Yeah, that's an anime that's
It was just
it's
dragging.
still going, isn't it?
Yeah, it's still going.
There are other ones that go on for that long that I fully endorse watching. One of the ones I watched when I was in high school, and it's still going now, was an anime. In the U.S. it was called Case Closed, and in Japan it was called Detective Conan. And it follows like this high school kid who is, well, he works as a consulting detective. They were going for like a very Sherlock Holmes vibe, and every episode was just, there's a murder or a crime or something committed, and he's solving it. But the twist is that he crosses people he shouldn't have crossed, and he gets poisoned. But the poison doesn't kill him. This is where the plot gets kind of weird. It shrinks him so he looks like a child again. And so the twist on the plot is that he has to find ways to solve these murders or crimes and
As
tell
a child. Yeah.
as a child and get the information to the adults who just think he's a kid. It's probably, I mean, it's very clearly an anime that was, I want to say it was made for kids, but it really isn't, because there's some pretty brutal murders in some of the episodes.
Right.
Like, there's an episode where a guy gets decapitated by a piano wire on a roller coaster.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, there's some pretty brutal. Anyway, but I loved like watching it because I loved. They do a good job, just like in the Sherlock Holmes short stories, of dropping hints along the way, so that you can kind of solve it
Yeah.
and figure it out yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they don't give anything away until the end, where there's a big plot reveal where somebody explains, like, oh, this is how this happened, and this is how this happened, and this is how they did this clever murder or something like that. And I really loved watching. It's on like episode 800 and something now.
Yeah. There's a Sherlock Holmes, the one with Downey Jr. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, that was like, hey, what if Sherlock Holmes was an action hero?
A bunch. No, not really. But
There's so many. Okay,
lots of people hated that film, and I actually really quite enjoyed it because they did explain all of the, like, how all of the things that were portrayed as magic to everyone else in the story,
Yeah.
how it was actually done. So, like, the rain when someone stepped in from getting out of his carriage wasn't actually rain. It was, like, basically sprinkling some odorless, flammable liquid onto the person, so that when he was in the room later, some guy just had to flick a fire match onto him, and he'd, like, completely combust.
I enjoyed the movie too. I will say that, but in hindsight, it was very, because I've seen other shows that do a better job with Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's quite a few Sherlock Holmes out there now.
Yeah. God. Well, okay, we're actually coming up on the end of segment 2. Do you want any final thoughts? Anything to close us out?
What? Oh, okay, yeah, we better round up. What's been the key focus of this one?
I mean, we seem to be talking about anime quite a bit today, in general.
Yeah, that's because of the Naruto thing.
Naruto.
Oh, God, you gotta stop doing that. I heard that so many times last night.
I don't remember. Well, it was one of my friends in college did that. Like, I think it was Juan, just all the time. And so whenever I hear about the series, that line pops into my head.
It was just those like intense moments where characters like running away. In the background, I just hear Naruto. It was rather distracting. Okay, yeah, that's my final thought. Fuck you.
I'm sorry. It's just I can picture that. Something always amuses me about that when it's like a very tense or serious scene, and then some asshole just ruins it. Okay. Oh God. All right. This is going to be the end of segment 2. Thank you everyone for listening, and we will be back momentarily with segment 3. And welcome back to the TMCJ podcast. We are on segment 3, our wildcard segment, which today we have gone back to the hive of scum and villainy known as Twitter. Yep. I was just kind of glancing through there. We'd kind of loosely decided we were going to see if something entertaining but not too controversial was trending, but it seems to be all controversial shit. One thing I did notice just now is apparently on this day in history, in 1933, Prohibition ended. That's a happy thing.
Yeah, 1933.
After 10 years, they freed the booze.
They freed the booze. It's not like free the nipple, but...
Yeah, exactly, but with a bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 21st Amendment to the U.S. Constitution is ratified, ending the prohibition of alcohol when Utah became the last state to ratify it. And then the hashtags, hashtag beer, hashtag wine, hashtag whiskey, hashtag history.
Oh, I wish I was getting that shit on mine.
Well, we're on the same Twitter account.
Yeah, I know, but mine's all the stupid political English shit.
I am going...
And Attack on Titan.
I am going to send you this. Do not read it.
Okay.
One of the things that I have the TMCJ podcast Twitter account following.
It's a problem I often have.
When I first made the account, I figured it needed to be following something, and so I followed just some random things. Like the Onion is one of them, though, and which was just hilarious. Although the Onion is having a harder and harder time creating parodies because reality seems to be stranger than anything.
Than fiction, yeah.
It's like anything they could possibly put out there. It's things that were parodies from... I'll give you an example. Like back in the early 2000s, or mid-2000s, I want to say it was, The Onion put out a fake article titled... Woman takes break from being a feminist to enjoy life. And there was, and sure enough, there was a real article written in I want to say it was 2017 or 2018 that one of my friends sent me, and it was an article about this woman who she was writing about how she had to set aside her feminist beliefs to enjoy any movies. I was like, well,
right.
It's just old Onion articles.
I go into movies sometimes being like, all right, I won't talk during the movie, even if something winds me up, I'll keep it to myself. I guess they're doing that, but with their emotions.
I guess. I mean, that's what I think most normal people do. Like when I'm watching a movie, especially if it's something over the top, like Boondock Saints that we just talked about, or one of the Marvel superhero movies, you have to have the willing suspension of disbelief. Like, you know, put it out of your mind that you are like, that would never happen, and then just enjoy it. Enjoy the pretty lights and colors.
Pardon me. Yeah, sorry, I'm being dragged in by the freaking leftist stuff again.
Yeah, we're supposed to be looking for stuff that isn't controversial.
Well, yeah, but I mean, is it? I mean, I feel like we're fairly neutral. Well, we're not neutral, but on the podcast, we're fairly neutral. And we discuss things for their merits and what we can see, as opposed to speculation.
Yeah, that is generally the goal.
And if we do speculate, we say this is based on our own opinions and no evidence.
And then there's always the caveat that, hey, we're just two random dudes.
We are two random dudes. We're very random.
The talk about, like, putting aside you're like, oh, that would... The willing suspension of disbelief thing reminded me of a Zero Punctuation review where he was reviewing the MMO DC Universe Online when it first came out.
Right.
And he's like, you can also choose, like, the origin of your powers, and it either comes... And he's like, but I thought that would be the same for every superhero, the willing suspension of disbelief.
Right.
The other Twitter account that I have this account following is Today in History, which is where I saw the Prohibition thing.
Oh, it keeps coming up with Yahtzee Croshaw to follow on Twitter. Shall I just hit follow on him? Because I feel like that's someone we can get behind.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Go on.
Go for it. That's somebody... I'm surprised I didn't think to follow him to begin with. Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you mid flow.
Mid-rant. The other thing I was noticing is that Elon Musk is just sending out a bunch of movie titles. Like, the most recent one is Watch Demolition Man.
Like, so what's Demolition Man again?
Demolition Man is it's a Sylvester Stallone movie, action movie. Him and what was the other guy's name? The villain in it is so good. There's actually a few, like, big name actors in that movie. But I only remember him. I don't remember the names of actors generally, but he's the one that pops out. He's the main character, the title character. In fact, he is the Demolition Man.
Yeah.
General premise of the movie is that he is kind of a cop that goes a little bit overboard to stop criminals and ends up causing tons of property damage and stuff like that. Like, there's a funny scene in the beginning of
Vigilante Justice. Where can we find out more about Vigilante Justice, guys?
This isn't Vigilante Justice. He's an actual police officer. He just doesn't care about property damage when he's trying to help people and catch the criminals. So, like, there's a scene in the beginning of the movie where, like, a news lady is like, sticking a microphone in his face. He's, like, singed and he's carrying, like, a little girl away from, like, a completely totaled mall. And she's like, how can you justify doing, like, $18 million of property damage just to save one person? And the little girl that he's carrying away just turns to the lady. She's like, fuck you, lady. It was... Yeah. But that kind of epitomizes his character in the movie. Anyway, he finally goes too far and ends up getting arrested and sentenced and stuff. And the central premise to the movie is that they start a new experimental prison thing where they're not putting them in jail, they put them in cryogenic sleep. And while they're in cryogenic sleep, they use suggestion, right, to try and mentally correct them, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, that happens to him, and then it fast forwards to, like, 20 or 30 years in the future, or so on. And the main criminal, the main villain that this guy is after a lot in the movie, he wakes up, and he starts causing chaos, and because things have changed so much, like, the future is everyone, like, no one's aggressive, no one swears, like, people rely on... they're not equipped, essentially, to deal with that caliber of criminal from back in the 80s. And so they end up waking up the Demolition Man so that he can help them take down this other criminal.
Yeah.
And it's that's the plot of the movie, and then it just continues on him chasing this criminal, and then there's other subplots and things. But it's an excellent action movie. Very simple, straightforward, really fun to watch.
Cool. Well, I've got a light-hearted another topic if you're ready.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. First of all, who the hell names their child Saint? All right. Not even my ego is that big, and that is saying things. Kim Kardashian is currently trending with the trending tag of My 5, which is one of her children called Saint turned 5 today, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
And she's interviewing her kids every year, the same questions, so that when they're older, she can tell them what they said when they were young.
That is honestly one of the most wholesome things I think I've ever heard come out of Twitter. That's
Really?
I really like that. That's an adorable idea.
It is, but normally people do it like photos and stuff, not like an essay.
Well, no, but think about it though, because it's like taking home movies. It's along the same line. Like you're back when video cameras weren't as ubiquitous as now. You'd only record maybe once or twice a year, and it'd be like Christmas, and you'd be recording your kids like opening presents, and and then you'd maybe years later you'd watch back home movies and be like, oh look how cute you were, look how excited you were that you got this bike or something like that. And I think it's the same sort of idea. It's like, what do you want to be when you grow up, and that sort of thing. And so when they're older, they can kind of have that moment of nostalgia and like, look, when you were 5 years old, you wanted to be an astronaut, and now you want to be an MMA fighter or something. It just,
yeah,
I think it's kind of just.
I'm curious what the questions are, because they don't actually tell us what they are.
True. If the questions are what I'm thinking, like kind of just cute and wholesome and something that they can look back to with fond nostalgia, then okay. Yeah. But if the questions are like, what's the square root of pi? And then they're like, what?
Yeah, not nonsensical.
Yeah, it'd be. I think that's a cool idea. I may actually. That might be a. If I ever have kids, I think that might be something I'd consider doing as just like a family tradition. Just like look back and watch it, because I like. Whenever I find something I wrote or something I did from when I was much younger, I'm like, oh, it kind of gives me a peek into what my thinking was like.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
I'm sorry. I'm still trying to find out what the questions are. Someone asked, and I like in the like replies, and theirs is the only question that does not have a heart next to it. So I'm guessing that was like a big old no.
Just like you're not going to hear these questions.
They're
private, they're proprietary questions.
Yeah. God, who calls their child Saint though? It's a very celebrity thing, isn't it, to call your child something
they're
extravagant.
Yeah, there are some weird names out there. Although I will say, there's some ego to it. My friend Juan named his first son after the first emperor of Rome.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, wait, what is it?
So the first emperor was Augustus Caesar, or before he took the name Augustus, it was Octavian Augustus Caesar. So he named
he's Buck Tavy.
Yeah, he named his kid Octavian. Which there's a certain amount of ego there.
Yeah, a little bit. But Tavy is, I don't know. Tavy is cute if you keep it. I mean, I don't know. Having to say the full thing is maybe a bit.
Well, yeah, I think that's probably why they abbreviated it. But
yeah. There's another person who's had their 5-year-old help them make card art, which is like they got them to draw little like dragony things, which is pretty adorable. That's cute. Man.
Some of the things that come out of the Onion are just amazing.
Yeah.
This is the headline. "You are the jewel of my collection," says Saudi prince while guiding frightened Jared Kushner towards his harem. I don't know. They have a picture to go along with it that just, I don't know, made me chuckle.
Yeah.
This is what happened the last time we did one of these Twitter segments. It just quickly degraded to you and I both separately browsing Twitter and then occasionally going, "Oh, look, that looks kind of cool."
Yeah, pretty much. It's basically shit posting. I have been watching a lot of the Yogscast live streams.
Right,
this last week.
Yeah, I've been talking about it. I've never really watched them or know anything about them, really.
No, it's something that I think there's a couple streams that they do over the Christmas period that will appeal to everyone, like the karaoke streams. I think everyone kind of enjoys that. But for the most part, you kind of got to have watched them a lot to enjoy most of it. Because a lot of the stuff they do is just really dumb.
Yeah.
But it's the people that you're there for, really, as opposed to the content.
That's what it used to be like for me for watching like Achievement Hunter and Rooster Teeth. Like anything under that umbrella. Achievement Hunter and Rooster Teeth were the ones I used to follow, and it was for the people. Like I like watching their podcast. I liked it, especially on Achievement Hunter when they do like the game activities and do like the stupid shenanigans where they're pranking each other at the office and stuff like that. That entertained me.
They've fallen on rough times.
They've kind of things have gotten rough over there. I haven't really been following them much lately.
No.
Because I don't know. It just they lost a few really good people that I enjoyed watching. And then a few of the other ones, like the longtime people that had been around since the Red versus Blue days, they were kind of taking a back seat and being less like in front of the camera, which is fine. You hit a point in your career where you want to be less of a personality and be more of a, at the high end, you get to do like creative writing and strategic planning and stuff like that. Maybe I can understand why they did it, but I thought it was a loss in terms of the entertainment value because those people were still fun to watch.
I believe there was some controversy about which meant people had to leave.
I heard that too. I don't know if that was ever confirmed though. I thought that was a rumor.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But as with everything on the internet, things don't have to be confirmed to be true in the internet's eyes. So a lot of people stopped watching, I think, because of rumors, whether they were true or not. But no, sorry. Positive. Yogscast.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go on.
Yeah. They made $1 million in the start of the second day of the charity live streams for Christmas. So they do this every year. They start at the 1st of December and end on the 30th. Just raising money for certain charities, and you can also like donate to your charity of choice as well as an option. And if you spend upwards of, I think it's £25 this year, might be $25, I'm not sure. Then you get a bundle of games from the Humble Bundle. That's like 45 games, I think it is, this year.
Holy crap.
And there are some really cool games in there. This does sound like an advert, but it's an advert for charity, so I feel kind of less bad about it.
Yeah. That's always... There's one charity stream that I used to watch quite a bit, was the Games Done Quick. It was like the speedrunning charity stream that happens every year.
Yeah, I remember.
Those tend to be pretty entertaining, but they've gotten in recent years a little bit more sanitized and corporatized. There's less fun in it now, and it's more just it's more dry and professional. So I haven't really watched it in the last year or so.
Yeah, every year with the Yogscast, more people, because there's a lot of them. Some people are gone, and some people are new every single year, and so it's never quite the same. But they've generally solidified what they do each year now, which does make it a little bit dry. And
it's not as much of a shit show.
Yeah, they also have kind of with they used to make really good music videos basically.
Yeah.
Or at least they made a couple of really good ones. And this year's, I listened to it and I just thought, oh god, that's awful. um, they didn't have an animator in house this year either, so they didn't really have visuals for either.
I feel like that's the way that the whole YouTube Rewind thing that they do every year, right?
Yeah, everyone always hates.
Well,
Yeah.
they didn't used to. That's the thing. Ever since I think the 2017, 2018, and 2019 ones were all those were hated. The 2018 one because it had nothing to do with what was actually on YouTube. The 2019 one was they basically just didn't even try. They just did it like a top 10 video, which was received better than the previous ones.
Ooh. I do remember them sending out some kind of message saying like, "You know better than us, clearly. So this is what you get instead."
Yep. But,
Yeah.
oh god. Yeah, I feel like there's with a lot of different things like that, entertainment companies or entertainment groups, there's a point where they get big enough that they sort of feel obligated to dry out and become more corporate, and be a little bit less entertaining.
Which is what they are at the end of the day. They're a corporation. They're there to make money. But it's always nice to see when a company listens to its followers.
Audience. Yeah.
Unless that's Twitter, because its followers are quite often dumbasses. No, I'm kidding. Other people.
There was speaking actually along the line of this subject, something that I've been thinking about, and I know we've talked about just shop talk on the podcast before. Sorry, shop talk about the podcast on the podcast was what I was trying to say. I've been thinking like right now we're on Twitter as our only social media account. We publish to YouTube, Spotify, Google, iTunes, and a couple other minor podcasting sites.
Yep.
I'm wondering if maybe we want to add more social media to it, because
the thing is, I'm not keeping up with the Twitter as the last week's been hectic as heck.
Yeah. I mean, believe me, it's the end of the year at work. I barely have time to breathe during the week.
Yeah. I've still got 2 sessions of XP for D&D to write up by tomorrow.
Oh my god.
That's like 2 hours out of my day.
Oh, well, you gotta do it.
Yeah, I've been a mess this week though. Like I said, I slept for like 17 hours yesterday.
And then you didn't sleep last night.
Yeah, so I've been up now for about over 24 hours, I think it is now. Yeah, just goes to show I'm not someone to take life choices off of, but
or sleep schedules, apparently.
Definitely not sleep. I've had there've been so many things in my life where I've had to be awake during the night that now I'm so ingrained with being awake overnight.
Yeah, I imagine you would be an amazing case study for somebody who's looking into like differences in circadian rhythms.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason why I slept so long for the 17 odd hours. Also, I only woke up from that 17 hours because someone knocked on my door. I think literally I probably would have woken up at one point and thought, it's sunny, I need to go back to bed still, and so I was automatically shut off again. It's kind of mad. You'd think the light would keep me awake, but it sends me to sleep. Yeah. That's something I need to fix.
To be fair, though, this is something that confuses a lot of people when I talk about it, or weirds them out, I guess. I find I'm much more alert, awake, and active on, like, overcast, like, cloudy or rainy days. Like, a lot of people, those are the days that they want to, like, just lay around in bed, take a nap, keep the lights off, and maybe watch a movie or something like that. Those are the days I want to get up and do something. like here right now, it's completely overcast. It's a downpour outside, and I'm feeling awake and alert. I'm looking forward to having like my day.
Lifting weights in the background.
Well, after this podcast, that's what I'm going to do. Is I'm going to lift weights and then do some chores around the house. But
nice.
That's the thing, is I feel much more alert and active when it's sunny out. I just want to be like, oh, go the fuck away.
Yeah.
I am so much less productive when it's like bright and sunny.
Yeah. Now I'm thinking. I know my body is tired, but I don't want to go to sleep right now.
Well, that's the other thing too.
Problem is, yeah. Actually, what am I gonna do tomorrow? I'm gonna be up at 6 p.m. So theoretically, if I sleep a maximum of 12 hours, I don't have to go to bed until 6 a.m. But I'm not gonna be able to stay awake till that long. Hell no.
That's another what? What time is it?
15 hours from now.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's 3 o'clock over there right now, right?
So yeah, basically I'm screwed.
It is interesting.
I'll just another few more hours if I'm going to be up at the right time to be. Yeah, God, don't try and work night shifts. Is my advice to everyone out there.
Oh, I had to do it a few times. My first job out of college, just like from one day to another, they shifted me from a day shift to a night shift for 2 weeks. It was miserable. And then I had to go right back to the day shift after that.
Yeah, I've been doing it for about 4 years.
Yeah, I do not envy you.
Also, yeah, because of the time difference between here and you guys over there, it's I've always been like 5 hours ahead of everyone in the UK anyway.
Right, yeah, because you have so much interaction with us from the US and then you've got people like what is it, Adam and Mass, who are out an hour even further. Yeah, because they're in the Midwest.
Well, yeah, Adam's 2 hours.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot he moved.
Mass is 1.
Yeah. So that's the same thing with my my family that lives out there. I got a family that lives in Colorado, Nebraska, Iowa. They're all hours ahead.
But yeah, no, Yi got on shortly before you joined the channel. Yeah, and he was like, dude, you need to get help.
Yeah.
And while he ate his Rice Krispies and protein powder. Sorry for giving away your secrets, Yi.
No, now everyone's gonna get as swole as he is.
Oh my god. I wish I was as swole as Yi was. Is. Yes, I was.
Yeah, he's dead now.
No, just fat. No. I'm kidding you. Please don't kill me.
What are we even talking about now?
I don't know.
Let's find something. Let's find something fun and interesting to end this off with, and then we'll close out this fucking shit show of a podcast.
It is a bit of a shit show.
We should think of something special to do for next podcast, though. It's episode 20. It's our
special. Okay. Well, that's gonna be. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Well, let's speculate on what we could do special for the next podcast.
I mean, for episode 20?
Yeah.
Something is numerically themed, or
numerically themed. What's 20 based related?
Fuck.
There's nothing relating to.
There 20s. Really isn't. It's like the lesser sibling. Sibling to episode 10.
Becoming an adult. That sounds really boring.
Well, in Japan, in the US, it happens at 18.
Well, that's alright. As far as I'm concerned, whilst you're still at 19, you're a teenager.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned. So I think 20 is when you become an adult.
You know, that is something interesting, though. Is like the age that adulthood is kind of considered to have happened in different eras and in different cultures.
I mean, people say you're an adult at 18 here because you can vote and you can drink.
Yeah, but here you can smoke and you can vote. You can't drink till 21, but
Yeah. It's really a point of view thing.
Yeah, and I
think maturity is different to whether you're an adult or a teenager.
Oh yeah, there are people in their late 20s that I honestly would not trust being able to walk out on the street on their own. Like,
poor Jesse. I'm kidding.
Jesse's one of those people who he's been like an old man ever since he was 19. Like, yeah. I've known him since my freshman year in college, and yeah, he's always been like the older, responsible one, which ended up coming in useful a few times. One of my old roommates, Juan, accidentally stabbed him with a katana, and Jesse had a first aid kit right there.
Yeah, man, that's the sign of someone who's had a child.
That was a fun birthday. Well, no, this was when we were in college still.
Oh right, yeah. What
I'm saying is, yeah, he's been that same old man ever since back in the day.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think you're ever going to reach that point, mate.
No, I've kind of come to terms.
I don't have a first aid kit, but I've got a shotgun.
I can put him in the other direction.
Amputate it, yeah.
I mean, I've kind of accepted that fact that, like, I'm always going to be childish at heart, which I'm okay with. Like, I take important things seriously, and when I don't need to be serious and, like, on the ball, I can act silly and like a child and still enjoy myself in that way. Do things that, like, amuse me, like say Naruto in the middle of a important cutscene.
I was going to say, for episode 20, we could do a rundown of 2020, but then I was like, wait, it's a shit year. It's probably not that.
Let's go with that. That's what we can do. One of our topics next week has got to be anything positive that happened in 2020. We'll see if we can.
Short episode.
We'll see if we can find 20 things that happened in 2020 that were positive. Because I don't think there are 20 of them, but they might exist.
Maybe.
We'll have to hunt them down. Maybe that'll be our segment 3. That'll be a sneak preview for next time.
If there's 20 things for segment 3, you realise that has to be like less than a minute and a half. Wait, yeah. There had to be a minute and a half each.
I mean, we've gone over by quite a bit before. I'm not too concerned about it.
Okay.
We can give it a whole 2 minutes a thing. Then we get 40
That's why when I'm making the quizzes, I keep it to 15, because I'm like, well, then we get 2 minutes to discuss each thing. And we still run over by like 10 minutes each time.
Yeah. Although I did watch back the quiz segment from this time. It was I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I do love the quizzes.
Anyway. Let's close it out there.
Yes.
All right. This has been the TMCJ podcast. We are at the end of episode 19. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we hope that you'll tune in again next week when we try to do something relevant for episode 20.
Have a splendid week.